He expressed warnings to others of a force so menacing and unbeatable, it could only be described as supernatural. He called them ghosts.
Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Call of Duty Ghosts Veteran Difficulty video walkthrough. This is mission 12, it's called Into the Deep. And it's the diver mission. It is the James Bond mission, which I have no idea why, but I will forever, from like the point of childhood onwards, associate levels like this with divers, diver guns, snorkels, canisters, all that kind of stuff with James Bond. I just will. And I think it's Thunderball where that first happened. But for whatever reason, that's it for me now. It will always be James Bondy for no other reason than because we're diving in water. And you know, I've got a lot of memories of divers. Like when I was in nursery, one of my very first memories of nursery is when I went there. They had this big paddling pool, half filled with water, this kind of tank thing, filled with diver toys, like, you know, little soldier divers. And I played with those guys, and there was whales and all sorts of stuff. So I played with those, and I had a really good time with them. And that was a very vivid and great memory of divers. But they will always be James Bond. But this is more of a roller coaster mission than anything else, because you're going to spend a lot of time following Keegan's lead, listening to what he says, and then every so often you're going to engage enemies. A couple of things to note: your gun isn't effective underwater for physics reasons, so you have to shoot a couple extra rounds, and the rounds do move slower. And unfortunately, it's not the case for the enemies, which is one of my big problems with this game. It's a tiny problem in the grand scheme of things, but I still think it's kind of douchey. And you might be asking, well, what is that? The enemy's bullets travel faster than yours do. You know, the game is just designed in such a way that that apparently happens. And they still don't travel, I don't think, as fast as they normally would, but I had an instance where I was aiming at a guy, he was the only person there, I started firing first, and I took damage before he flinched. And I'm sorry, but I should win that. You know, sheer gravity and every force of nature we understand tells me that I should win that in the physical realm, and I didn't. So I made a note of it to mention it, that if you're having issues or you're getting caught out and you can't understand why, it might be something to do with something like that. There's also an achievement on this mission for killing, I think, 6 people with your knife. I got it just in this playthrough, just by sheer playing the game. You know, I didn't have to go out of my way to get it. I didn't even know it was an achievement. And that is because the enemies get very aggressive, and through their aggression they'll rush you, and when they rush you there's a little quick time event that happens where you have to stab them. And this sequence here, if you wait, I believe 2 of the divers will swim away. But I guess it doesn't really matter, because once it kicks off you're still going to be in a firefight. A couple of things to note: the inflatable balloons that are keeping up the cover and geometry that's in front of you, you can shoot the balloons, it does a massive flash, and oh, here we go, there's a guy attacking me, melee range, there's the counter. I think that's cool, that, because you don't die immediately when somebody comes up to melee you. It goes into one of those fancy animations, so it kind of saves your life. You know, if that was on land, you'd be dead then. There would be no 2 words about it. But something to note in the swimming levels, just like the space levels, when you press the left and right bumpers, you'll ascend and descend. And a lot of the skill on these missions is ascending and descending and controlling the buoyancy to stay in cover while trying to kill people. And it's not easy, guys. It really isn't. I was watching DSP live stream this game the other day, and a lot of people will be like, well, why, Chris, why do you watch DSP? I watch him because he makes me laugh, and he makes me laugh because he is one of the most stubborn gamers I've ever watched, and that amuses me to no end. Sometimes I find it a bit too much and I have to turn it off, but for the most, I find it funny. And it's funny because he blames everything but himself for his mistakes, and there's just there's just hilarity that ensues from that, where he calls things broken and buggy, when essentially it's his own stupidity that's stopping him from progressing. And I don't think he'll ever get better as a player until he starts to stop blaming his tools, because he's just coming across as a bad craftsman. But on the swimming levels in particular, he was hating them. He said they were broken and bad and didn't work because he was getting killed. You know, he wasn't in cover and he was getting killed. It's it's so funny, but it's like, they aren't easy, they're tricky, and you have to play them a very specific way, and if you don't, you do die. But I don't know when dying made games broken, because you've died in every game I've ever played, pretty much. So it just seems to be a kind of how it works. But the guy I was talking about just then, he doesn't look at it as a learning experience. He looks at it as like a failure or the end of the world, or a problem with the design. I'm not too sure. It's very strange. It's an interesting psychosis that he has. And I do recommend it if you've never seen him, but my girlfriend can't watch it because he pisses her off too much. But on this sequence here, you have to swim faster, and you can tell when you're swimming faster because you'll see him do like a push with his hands. My analogs are a little bit knackered, so I'm clicking them all the time trying to swim faster, and my guy's not swimming faster, and I'm wondering why not. Maybe it's the game, maybe you're not supposed to. It's you know, it's whatever it is. It is. But keep on pushing forward. A lot of this is stealth, or underwater stealth of sorts, where you're hiding from explosions, you're hiding from sharks. A little word of warning, don't shoot the sharks. I did it thinking I could kill one, and I shot it real good, and it still did an animation of it murdering me for no reason. And admittedly, it only had my torso in its mouth. I could have shoved the gun in its eye and continued to fight, but the game just doesn't let you. It just, you know, it's end of game at that point. But here is the photonic missile. There's an achievement for doing this first time. All you have to do is guide this missile towards the thermal patch underneath the boat. And I love the thermal on this game. It's one of my favourite looking thermals. I'm sure it's not accurate to what thermals actually look like. It just makes everything look trippy and psychedelic, and I'm a big fan of the colours. But there's the checkpoint. There goes the warship. And now we're going to do a little bit more swimming and a little bit more shooting. So, you know, strap in for more underwater James Bond action. But I tried Extinction mode last night. I only got to play for about 15 minutes. And I had to quit because it was getting super late. And I knew I had to try and get up early so I could continue commentating this walkthrough. So I ended up just, you know, leaving my match at like the third hive or something. So I'm not very far in it, guys. I played solo. But that game mode is amazing. I was so surprised by it. I had trepidations going into it that it was going to do what almost everything does in Infinity Ward's, you know, bonus modes post Modern Warfare 2. I thought it was going to sound like a great idea and I was going to play it, and it was going to be the worst implementation of that idea, extremely limited, no ambition, and ultimately flat, boring, and zero replay value. But it turns out, just on my 15-minute appraisal, that it's going to be really, really good. So the first thing that is awesome that it has, that is really touching on my crack patch, is leveling. There is a progression system in the game where you level up, you rank up, and I don't know what it governs, I don't really know what it means. It's just a number next to my name, and it's enough to make me want to increase that number because I'm just that way. Super, super good. Fantastic implementation. I'm happy. This section here, by the way, folks, this is challenging, this part. There's a ton of guys, they can hit you really well. You can't really get out of cover and shoot them so well because of just the way the buoyancy works. Be really, really tentative on this sequence. I died like 2 or 3 times just because they really were nailing me. And you might notice a laptop floating in front of you to your right here, where that big rock is. The intel floats down from the ship, so if you want to pick it up you have to wait for it to arrive first, which is a kind of cool idea. I like that. I've never really seen anything like that as far as a collectible. And I wonder when collectibles will ever change, but I'll talk about that on a different tangent. So back to Extinction mode. So progressive leveling, no idea what it governs, but glad it's there because it gives it that carrot on the stick. There is leveling in-game, which I believe is unique to every time you play it. It's kind of like a perk power level system, where when you complete objectives you get money and you get, I assume, skill points, and then you can invest the skill points to increase your abilities in that one game. I believe when you play again you'll have to increase yourself because you start with a pistol and at a base every single time you start. So not only do you have the overhauling leveling, but you have, you know, the mission specific ones when you go into Extinction mode, which is interesting. And you get to pick your class before you go in. The classes aren't weapons or anything, they're abilities. I think you can change your pistol and that's it. So whatever pistol you want to carry and whatever you want your D-pad perks to be. So every direction on the D-pad does a different ability. Each of these abilities cost money, and some of them are passive bonuses to you, some of them are team bonuses, some of them are items and equipment that you can give to your team and to yourself. It seems like it's really an emphasis on class and building a team that complements each other, which sounds really interesting. I just picked Weapon Specialist when I played, which gave me faster aim down sights and like sleight of hand and stuff. And it seemed perfectly fine. But I began at the start, the chopper drops you off, I picked up a drill, took the drill to the first hive and started getting attacked by the first of the aliens, which are they're kind of like dog creatures that jump around. They remind me of every science fiction creature that's ever existed that looks kind of like that. You know, it's on 4 legs, it's jumping around, it's kind of fat, it's got an interesting face. The colour schemes are very reminiscent to the Prometheans on Halo 4, because there's a lot of yellows and reds and pale whites, which I don't know if anyone else is going to draw that resemblance because they couldn't be more different in design, but you know, colour wise it's very similar. And they're fast, they jump around, they gang up on you, they go down pretty quickly with a couple of knives and a couple of shots. And the first thing that happened was a challenge. So it was an active HUD element that popped up saying, you know, do this wave of enemies or do this hive doing only melee. So I did that and I got a nice little bonus. The hive blew up, it wanted me to pick the drill up, but I wanted to have a look around before I carried the drill, so I walked forward and there was a bag of trash on the ground that I went over to it and it allowed me to loot it. And when I looted it, I got an attachment for a weapon, and then I looted another pile of garbage somewhere else and it got me grenades. And there is stuff to find everywhere that powers you up and gives you accessories. There's weapons lying around on the ground that you can pick up for a cost, which is kind of shitty, but you know, you can't have everything, I guess. So I picked up an AK-12, started gunning town on that, and the enemies don't spawn immediately. They seem to only spawn when you're doing things. Like, they ambiently spawn every so often, but they do give you calm before the storm, so to speak. And I put the second drill down and started shooting more of them and just running around and kiting. And it's not like zombies at all, because it's none of that bullshit where you can't take hits, you can't face the enemies, you've got to do the ridiculous lead them through the level and run them in circles and exploit the AI. It's none of that, and I'm so happy. This is all just player reaction and player skill. If you're good at evading without getting hit while something chases you quickly, you're going to be really good at this. If you're good at backpedaling and aiming and you've got a good trigger finger, you're probably going to do really well at this. Like, there were a ton of enemies at one time chasing me, and I was backing off, shooting them, running, hip firing, you know, watching them jump up against walls and jump attack me, and all sorts of interesting stuff. It's a really, really cool game mode that I had a lot of fun with in 15 minutes. There was a couple of crates that dropped, I picked those up, I got access to what was like goggles that fired an airstrike, and it seems awesome. I have no idea where it's going to go or how long it is or how hard it gets, but just at a base level it seems really, really interesting, and I cannot wait to experiment more with it and bring more to the channel. And I'm hoping that a lot of my friends buy this game, so I've got the old team back together. But as it stands, I don't think a single one of the people I know personally have bought the game, which just goes to show the diminished returns on Call of Duty for some people. Which is funny because, you know, they buy Assassin's Creeds, which is the one that I've got diminished returns with. But thank you for watching. I hope you've found the video entertaining or helpful, depending on why you're here. And as always, you take care now.